Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the December CrushBank customer webinar. My name's Nick Pegley, and I'm going to be your facilitator today. Please, for any questions throughout the webinar, use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And without further ado, let me introduce you to Chief Revenue Officer Brian Mullaney.
Thanks, Nick. As you noted, this is obviously recorded, so if you either join late or you have someone you want to share this with internally, it'll be on demand at any point in time going forward. So please distribute this as widely as you see fit inside your organization. Quick framework for this morning / afternoon, depending upon where you are. Myself, David Tan, and Ben Supercasso are going to run through a few key messages, experiences, best practices, and features from the CrushBank side. And then Nick Auxier is going to run through some successes and efforts that he's put in at Visual Edge IT to drive CrushBank deeply into their strategic efforts. So I think it'll be a really valuable 40 minutes or so, with a little bit of Q&A. Maybe it'll be a little bit beyond that. And as you can see right here, I'm going to turn it over to Ben. We're going to go through some key features that we've added over the course of the last 4 to 6 months. So not back to the beginning of time, but things that may have been overlooked in the course of day-to-day and month-to-month business on your side. From that, we're going to turn it to Dave, who will run through around 10 best practices. Some of them are really simple. Some of them require a little sophistication, and we will work with you on that. We're happy to help one-on-one to make sure that those get leveraged. But the whole point is that, like any other major investment or effort or change, it's pretty easy to use, but there are some steps required to build a habit. And if you don't, it's a frustrating scenario where you're not optimizing the investment. If you do, it's just like when you first put the PSA in place and demanded that people put time entries in routinely and got a little bit of pushback on it. It's the same sort of thing here, and you'll see the same results. And from there, Nick will give his overview at Visual Edge IT, and then Ben will close with some new features that are rolling out right at the end of the year. So and then we'll obviously do Q&A, which will interrupt ourselves over the course of the half hour to 45 minutes as they come up if they're timely. So Nick will manage that, and from here we'll jump in. Ben, our senior product manager, will jump into recently added features.
Thanks, Brian. Great. So I'll be presenting the recently added features. I'm going to break this down into areas of function, search and data capture, which is one of the primary functions of CrushBank, getting data in and then leveraging that data, of course, to resolve tickets faster. Data quality for management to be able to identify when data is missing, and alongside that, what data is good within the system and quality. And then finally, workflow automation, areas where CrushBank helps optimize and automate your existing workflow. So we'll keep going. There we go. All right, so for data capture and search, we've added 3 different new features. The first one, Secret Server. Secret Server is an access management software product, third party, where it allows you to store securely password related information in your various systems. So we've created an integration with that to bring in that data and allow you to leverage it within CrushBank. This is very beneficial if you're troubleshooting an issue with the system, and you can just simply type in the system name. It's going to bring back all related config information, including password information. We do synchronize permissions within Secret Server. So any technician that doesn't have access to a specific secret within Secret Server, it's going to apply within CrushBank as well. So we do carry those permissions over. And we give you the ability, just kind of with our existing IT Glue integration, to hide the secret or show it within CrushBank. If you hide it, you just have to go to the actual original source to view that feature. Nick, go to the next. LionGuard. So those of you not familiar with LionGuard allows you to connect to various environments and systems, and it'll automatically pull configuration information from those system in key value pairs. You can set this up on specific timelines, so it'll actually track any changes and pull that config according to each timeline. So what we do is we'll pull in every time a new timeline occurs, we'll pull that in and then allow you to search through basically all the key value pairs. LionGuard, one thing it's missing right now is any kind of search capability. So we've definitely extended the functionality of it by adding search within CrushBank. So it's really beneficial if, you know, something in your configuration changed within a system, you can compare two timelines and see, you know, what might have changed within it. This is our phase 1 integration that we've added, and we're looking to add a phase 2 with some more robust features in regards to LionGuard. All right, Outlook plugin. Really excited about this one. So a lot of times technicians will be collaborating on a certain ticket, right? And they'll use email for that collaboration. They'll go back and forth, they'll pass attachments, different things like that. And that's something that you want to capture instantaneously, the notes as well as the attachments. So we built an Outlook plugin, basically a CrushBank button within Outlook. And when you're on an email that you find, hey, you know, other technicians can get benefit out of this, the content of this email and these attachments, you can just quickly click the CrushBank icon within Outlook. It'll pop up this dialog box you see on the left. You can select your client, modify your text, and then it'll also include any attachments related to that email, and you can automatically ingest it into CrushBank and add it to your library for future technicians to be able to reference. So now data quality. So one of our focuses is also to help you identify when data is missing within the CrushBank system, and also you know, which data in your system is really helping technicians solve issues. So the no good data workflow, you guys are already familiar with this. We've extended it a little bit within the search. The image you see on top within the search, we have that no good data link. So if your technician runs a search and they're looking through the data and they say, you know what, none of this is really pertains to the issue that I'm seeing, they can click that link and it has a comment box in there, and they can fill in the comments and basically let management know, hey, you know, we need data for this particular search for this particular issue. So we've extended it a bit further to add an actual data workflow where you can create, you can choose a service board and you can create tickets anytime no good data gets utilized by one of the technicians. So this is great because then you can assign someone within your team to be kind of the no good data guru and kind of follow those tickets and make sure that anything that's incoming, that you're updating the data in the system with KVAs or any documentation that's applicable to kind of just fill in the gaps as you go. Solve my issue functionality. So this is an extension of the was this helpful? So again, as I said before, we help you identify missing data, but also data that's gonna help you along the way. So just by clicking was this helpful, we added that call out feature, which will star the document with the number of people that marked it helpful. This takes it a step further, solve my issue, so you can track end to end from investigation to resolution, you know, which CrushBank documentation actually helps solve issues. Again, and also in that call out that comes up, that's going to help any technician, you know, running any search. If they see a search result number 3 within configs or within documents that's starred and it has, you know, number 5 next to it, that means it was helpful 5 times for different technicians. So it kind of helps identify, okay, this is a go-to document for this particular issue. Okay, and finally, workflow automation. So we're building different features to help optimize and automate workflow. So one of the big ones within ConnectWise is type, subtype, and item. So this can be quite a bit of pain for a lot of clients just to keep it updated. It's a very manual process. Technicians have to go and read the contents and categorize it. So we've noticed with a lot of our clients, you know, a lot of them are left in must change, or they haven't been categorized properly. So we've added a ticket classifier functionality that will basically read the contents of your ticket, run it against our model, and then there's a certain level of mapping on a first step configuration, and it'll read against the mapping to the model, and it'll classify your tickets automatically. We give 2 options right now. You can use our template, which is like a one-click configuration, which is the recommended approach, and you can auto configure to our types and subtypes within our template, and that'll automatically associate all of our AI mappings with that. Or you can, if you want to keep your existing structure, you can do that as well, but then you have to go through and do a one-time mapping from our concepts to your types and subtypes. But this does take the pain away from having to stay on top of types and subtypes. It'll automatically do it for you. You can choose the statuses. You know, most commonly is on open and then as well as on close, and it'll keep it updated for you. With our template, we also offer the ability to classify historically. So you can go back in time up to about, I think 12 years, I think is the maximum. You can go back in time and classify accordingly. And one more thing to note here on the ticket classifier is that you can build, once you have this set up and built, you can build workflows around it. So if you have certain workflows related to specific types and subtypes, you can build those around them. And then finally, ticket budgeter. So the budget section within ConnectWise for each ticket. This is rarely used, we've noticed, with our clients because it's a very manual process to go in and find the budget for each individual ticket. It would require that you find all related tickets manually and then calculate the budget or find the total hours worked for each and then derive an average from all those tickets. So we take that work out of your hands and basically automate it. So our ticket budgeter, after configuring, will go through with that for any new ticket that comes in, find any related tickets that have been closed and automatically calculate the average hours worked and populate the budget hours field. Again, you can use this budget hour field to create different workflows within ConnectWise. And yep, that's that.
Thanks so much, Ben. Next up, David Tan, our CTO, is going to talk through some best practices.
Thanks, Nick, and thanks, Ben. I only have one slide. I'm going to run through this, and then we'll kind of circle back, and I may roll the dice and try and do some live demos to give you guys a better idea of what I'm talking about. I just want to make a comment real quick about the stuff that Ben touched on. So all that functionality around ticket classification and creating tickets for no good data and the ticket budget or all that stuff are live inside ConnectWise right now. So I know not everyone on this call, not every CrushBank customer is using ConnectWise. We are building and expanding that functionality for other systems. So particularly like the ServiceNows and Autotask and BMS, that will all be live coming soon. But right now that stuff is all live for ConnectWise. So if you're not a ConnectWise shop, just know that those features aren't live or aren't there for you yet. So just want to let you know. All right, so we kind of broke this down into two different categories around best practices. First is from a management administrative standpoint. So the type of things you should be doing that we see are being successful to encourage people to not only use and leverage CrushBank more, but get the most out of it. And then the second piece is for your technical teams, just how they would work with it and how they'll benefit the most from it. So if we just run through the list really quickly, the first one on the list there is the no escalation without using CrushBank. This is something we've seen very successful. I'm going to show you an example why in a minute or so, but this is something we've seen very successful at a bunch of our clients where anytime a ticket needs to be escalated, my recommendation is that you require that handoff communication to have some sort of a component about did a CrushBank search or did not do a CrushBank search. Again, even if the ticket still needs to be escalated, and even if there's not a ton of value because maybe this is a new client, a new issue, a new system, whatever the case may be, maybe you can't find a lot of good information about it. At least it gets them in the habit of knowing how to exhaust all their resources and do every bit of effort before they pass along to someone else. Look, I've been doing this a long time and I understand how people work. And a lot of times people feel if they can't solve the problem, it's easiest. And honestly, it's often best for the client just to get someone else involved that can. But I don't think in this day and age, that's all that realistic with the strain on resources we all have and the patience, the lack of patience, I should say, a bunch of our customers have, and the frustration involved around support. I think it's real important for your tech teams to make sure they're doing everything they can. And again, one of the ways we do that is encourage people to require a CrushBank component of an escalation handoff email or communication. The second one is what we call it our long ticket review. So basically analyzing tickets that take over 60 minutes. Now, granted, I know there are often tickets that will take over 60 minutes and it's realistic, whether it's setting up some new hardware, setting up a new user, things like that. But what I find as an admin, if you get in the habit of reviewing users' timesheets, and we actually have some utilities that we can even make available if you want to do this a little bit more efficiently. And this is what I'm going to show you in just a minute. But we often find that if you go through and review people's timesheets for tickets that took a long time and kind of recreate that effort from the CrushBank side, it gives you the opportunity to see either, hey, your people are not leveraging the system the right way, or show them evidence of why it's valuable, help them learn how to use the system better, things like that. So I highly recommend doing some sort of a timesheet analysis, looking for tickets that took a long time, doing a brief look at the ticket, seeing if it should or it shouldn't. And by the way, this will teach you something about your desk as well, even outside of CrushBank. You'll start to understand why people take longer on tickets, where they're struggling to find information, what they're like, how they're struggling to communicate with the users. This will open up a world, I think, of opportunities for you. So I highly encourage it. We talk about, and we have talked about synonyms extensively in the past, both in kind of webinars and events like this. We talk about it in the onboarding, but I just want to reemphasize the importance of it. We all come from different companies, different worlds where we use different vernacular to describe the same thing. And I think it's real important to understand that not everyone that you bring into the organization is going to speak the same language. So the way we let you leverage this is through the use of synonyms. And basically, if you're not familiar, how that works is we'll use SharePoint as an example. Let's say you have a client that uses SharePoint, but they call it the intranet because they're old school and they used to have some sort of intranet where they kept all their company data and everything got moved to SharePoint, but they don't know that it's SharePoint on the back end. So someone may call in and say, hey, I can't log into the intranet. Well, if you have a tech that has no idea what the intranet is, they're going to waste countless hours. They're going to escalate. They're going to ask a bunch of questions trying to figure out what at Acme Corporation do they mean when they say they can't log into the intranet. If you set that up as a synonym, and you'd have to work with us for that. If you set that up as a synonym, as soon as they type in that they can't log into the intranet, they will get results related to SharePoint. So that's just one example. There's a bunch of them. Things like people that use QuickBooks as 2 words instead of 1. Client abbreviations, you call a company ABC when really their name is Apple Beverage Corp, things like that. So use of synonyms, real important, I think, for the quality of the results. And again, it's something that we help you set up front, which I think makes the system that much more effective. 3 other ones I'll run through real quick. The reverse lookup's pretty obvious. The way I find this the most, personally, I find the most interesting is phone numbers. It's something that people don't often throw into CrushBank. But if you put a phone number in and you do a search, you'll not only find the CRM data associated with that. So, hey, this is Jane at Acme Corporation. Or maybe it's the phone number from someone's vacation home that they asked you to call them on 6 months ago, you never documented, and that's the number they called in on. So those reverse lookups for things like phone numbers, license keys, IP addresses can be real powerful. Again, just get in the habit of using a search as your first go-to activity or action. Same thing with Google searches. Some of you may know we have the ability to upload web pages and make them appear as part of your content, your documentation inside of CrushBank. So I would ask people if they're not using it, ask them how many Google searches they do a day, find out what they're searching for, and encourage them to get those documents loaded into CrushBank. Because again, if one person does a Google search and finds really good information, that's great for them, but that has no value to the rest of your organization. Where if they go and upload that web page rather into CrushBank, now it's valuable for everybody. And the things that Ben just talked about, the no good data, notes when a ticket solved, was this helpful? These all sort of feed the flywheel and help fast track not only the training of the system, but also the use of the system. So the no good data one is probably my favorite function. Ben did a pretty good job of describing it, but the idea behind it is that you do a search, nothing good comes up, you click the button and automatically a ticket is created. And that could be for your documentation team. It could be for the account management team. It could be for the proactive team, however you run your business. Someone is now responsible for understanding why you don't have good data for this result. And quite frankly, maybe there's no good data to be had. Maybe this is a new system. Maybe it's a training issue. It's not always black and white, but at least this sort of uncovers the opportunity for you to see where and why people are failing and finding answers. And then real quick on the from the tech standpoint, I like to think of the search as sort of an expanding circle. So let's say you do a search inside of ConnectWise or ServiceNow or whatever, where you search by ticket and you get a bunch of results. If that result set doesn't have good data in it, the first thing I would do is switch off the suggestions. I'm going to show you this right now as I switch to a live demo. Is you switch off the suggestions so that, and then do an actual query. So essentially, you're going from the system building a query for this company to you building a query for this company, because maybe the ticket came in and said, I have an error on my printer, but maybe there's more data you can put in there. Or the next step is to switch from just that company to all, because we all know that we have companies that run a lot of the same systems and platforms. And just because you solved the ticket for a different company, maybe you can leverage that for this new one as well. So like I said, sort of think of it as an expanding circle. Use the resolve query, then do your own query inside that company, then do your own query inside all companies, and you just get an ever expanding data set of results. I mentioned the resolve, ask a further question. I'll show you the difference between tile view and list view when I switch to the demo. And keyword search, this is a functionality, and Nick, I'm just going to take control of the screen real quick. The keyword search is a functionality that not everybody understands. Is available. If you put a search in quotation marks, it will do an exact keyword search for that term. So again, if something has to have, for example, Meraki in the results, you would do a search and you put Meraki in quotes, for example. So I'm going to run through the really quick example. Now I'm doing this in the web browser. This could just as easily work inside the pod, inside ConnectWise or ServiceNow or whatever. The reason I'm doing it in the web browser, quite frankly, is just because it's bigger and easier to see. So I'm logged into a demo tenant here, and I'm logged into a demo ConnectWise tenant. So I mentioned the 20 for 60 ticket search. So I'm just looking at one user's timesheets here, and I'm looking down the right-hand side at tickets at how long they took. So I chose this one towards the bottom here, where the user spent almost 3.25 hours unable to log into Skype for Business on Yealink. And if you click on it, you can see the time associated with it. You'll notice there's a couple of different people putting time against it. If you read the notes, you'll see that it was escalated, it was bounced around a little bit, and it was ultimately solved. But I'm going to show you what that looks like inside CrushBank. So the first thing I do here is I click search by ticket. And again, you can do this in the pod, but I chose to do it inside of CrushBank. Sorry, in the web browser. I do a search, and this is going to bring me back the search results. So again, this was a user that couldn't log into Skype for Business on the Yealink phone. So you'll notice I put the ticket number, it found the company, it did the search. So I could do all that fun stuff. But literally the very first ticket result I click on here says phone. And if you read through it, it is a different ticket with almost the same exact issue. And it talks about step-by-step how the person solved it. Now, this might not be the end all be all. Ultimately, what they had to do here was they had to reinstall the Yealink software on the phone in both cases. But if nothing else, it gives you an example of an issue that someone had, how they solved it in the past, who worked on it, what they did. So basically all the troubleshooting steps. So, we like to say you're kind of starting on second base here. And there are other tickets that may be relevant or useful. You can click on them and you can get all those details. And there's other information about the users involved. Just so happens in this case, as I scroll up, there's not a ton of good configuration information. Here's the phone info, but really what I was looking for was the ticket where this was resolved. So you could see how in this scenario, I'm not saying it would have cut it from 3.5 hours to 15 minutes, but it probably would have cut it down fairly significantly if I had done this the right way. I mentioned list view and tile view. I'm just going to really quickly show you what I mean by that. So by default, the results come up in what we call list view. And what this basically does is it takes all the information and all the document types, and it sorts them by confidence level across all the document types. Generally speaking, this gets pretty overloaded with tickets because tickets are often the best result for a ticket. But a lot of times you'll want to see configuration information. So I highly recommend that you work and live in tile view so you can see the different pieces individually. And again, I think it's also important to understand that you can drill into each one of these and scroll down. Oftentimes the result's not going to be on the first page. It will get better the more you use it and the more you click on it and do these things we talked about. But if you, especially as you're getting started, you really need to drill into those and have the patience to kind of look through those results a little bit more rather than assume that it's going to, sort of hit you in the face with the very first result. That was all I had, Nick. I'm going to stop sharing and give you control back. Certainly any questions, any comments, anything anyone has, please let me know. But just kind of a brief overview of what our thoughts around best practices are.
Thanks so much, David. That was great. I think it's always so much better seeing it actually live on the screen. So Brian, would you like to introduce our featured customer?
I surely will. Just a quick conclusion or tie off on Dave's comments there. When you shift once to tile, it stays in tile, David, correct? So
that is correct, yes.
So that's a personal default. When you go from list to tile, your users only have to do it once, and then they're in that format. And the ability to do that reverse lookup kind of mimics what your team would have seen in that long tail search, that 20 for 60. So that's a great, we've really found a lot of value in going back, day 2, day 3, and looking at where that is. So, all right, without further ado, I will introduce Nick. Nick has been working with CrushBank for the better part of a year and a half, Nick. And sort of free form here, I'm going to turn it over to you on everything that has been effective, everything that you've done that you've sort of leaned in on and has worked well, and everything you haven't, right? Everything that sort of you wish maybe we did day one, all those sort of things, so you can tell a little bit of a story. And it wouldn't hurt if you gave sort of 60 to 90 second backdrop on Visual Edge and sort of the corporate challenge that you guys faced before we started.
Yeah, so Visual Edge is a larger MSP out in the market. We are wholly owned by what is a legacy MFP copier company. So I came from one of our first acquisitions, just a true MSP based out of Indianapolis. We then purchased quite a few more and have been rolling out managed services in each of the copier MFP companies that we have. As Brian said, we started using CrushBank about 18 months ago. At that point in time, I had about 18 to 20 engineers on the service desk. We were just true, really 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Typical on call on the weekends. At this point in time, in the last 18 months, I believe I have over 50 on the service desk, 30 out in my field services, and all 50 of those on the service desk have access and utilize CrushBank on a daily basis. It's becoming really, really important for us going forward with our 24/7, just due to engineers are used to, pinging each other in teams. Have you seen this before? Have you done this before? And the ability for CrushBank to go in, look at the ConnectWise data and start providing those results for them is becoming very, very key. I would say when we started with CrushBank, we listened to you guys, but I don't know that we followed what we should have done. I think we're in the same boat as many others. Engineers tend to not like change when it comes to what they're doing, but love change out in the market, as in new technologies and those type of things. So a couple of things we did to get them to start using the system. One was games. We ran 2 or 3 month-long just games inside that they would get bonuses, either individual or our teams based for them. Things like, hey, the most CrushBank searches in the month gets a $200 gift card, and then the next closest gets $100. We did a couple of those. Then we did, within the teams, and kind of put it on the team leads to manage those searches and make sure their engineers were doing it and bonus those managers on that. And once we started doing that, that's when we really start seeing the spike in the searches, the spike in the checkboxes or buttons for usable information, not usable information. I think the biggest thing that we wished we would have done straight out of the gate was listen to the synonyms. I think it's biting us a little bit right now. I'll use the SharePoint comment that I can't remember if it was Ben or David said a minute ago, that most of our guys write in shorthand. So when we're searching our ConnectWise data, we don't usually find SharePoint listed in there. It's usually listed as SP or intranet. So That's a big push for us this week and next to get those synonyms done, uploaded, so that helps our search results. Forcing the engineers to not utilize all the time that the automated query when they open the ticket. I think we've seen many clients email us in with help and 15 exclamation points. That kind of thing's not going to get us a good response back from CrushBank, but taking the extra 2 seconds to type in what they really want to search and then up and down vote those results. The other thing that we're working on right now is changing our escalation procedure to match what CrushBank is saying. So before we escalate something, it's always been the case for us that the team lead was involved to make sure that we weren't just missing things. But going forward, as I believe yesterday, engineers have to use CrushBank to see if they can find the information they need on their own. Again, this really ties into going 24/7, making sure that we're getting back to those clients as quickly as possible. And most of the information they need is in there, even if IT Glue isn't documented very well, which goes into one of the other features we talked about. We can usually find the information we need somewhere inside of ConnectWise data. One of the biggest things we did right out of the gate too is develop questionnaires in SharePoint, asking things like, hey, how many Google searches did you do this week? What issues are you having out of CrushBank, to try to pivot the thought process of the engineers, instead of just going and searching IT Glue for any information, not finding anything and escalating the ticket, to actually looking at the data they're given. And I think the biggest things that I'm excited about in the new things, there's that ticket classifier and ticket budgeter. I think I've talked to David, Ben, and Brian about that a lot, that being able to put averages on things like PC deployments and see what the outliers are and where we might need training from engineers, or where a ticket went awry that took too long, are really keys for us moving forward.
Yeah, it's kind of sorry to interrupt, Nick. It's kind of a new and interesting opportunity we didn't really talk too much about, where you're laying that data in there up front, and then you can start to measure people based on their performance. So it becomes, especially in like the remote work world that we live in right now, one of the questions we're often asked is, how do people are being efficient? How do you know that they're doing their job? And maybe someone you expect them to close 4 tickets a day, and maybe someone you expect them to close 8 tickets a day. But really, is that the right expectation? Because it's the person that closing 4 tickets a day, averaging 25% more time based on these this time average. And sure, this is data that you can get other ways, but sort of pre-feeding the ticket with it opens up so many opportunities, again, not just around reporting and training, but around workflow and alerting and reminders and just accountability, that I think it's a tremendous opportunity.
I agree.
I wanted to ask you a real quick question, Nick. So you mentioned the synonyms, which obviously I talked about and I'm very high on as well. And that there was a great example that people use SP instead of SharePoint. Just to kind of give everyone on the call an idea, and maybe just to get the juices flowing and thinking, like, how do you come up with a list of synonyms, and how can we work with you to help you build that? Because I think like one of the things that we do as CrushBank is we often tout how little effort there is to get up and running with the system, which is true. You set up a few API keys and we go to work and do all the heavy lifting. But the truth of the matter is, for a truly successful engagement, it does need to be a little bit more collaborative. So this is like kind of, again, me asking you for advice, but also to get everyone thinking, like, how do you think we can collectively do a better job of coming up with those list of synonyms rather, sorry.
I think for us, it was just, getting a meeting between my managers, my team leads, a couple of our key engineers out there, looking at the list and then developing what we use. Obviously, I can't do it on a daily basis. I'm not in the tickets like those guys are. So you really need to take that all the way down to that engineer level on what are they typing in and what do they expect to see. I'll go back to the SharePoint example. We, for some reason, use SP across the board. I don't know where it came from, who started it, but that's just kind of one of our internal things. So without that being in there, and really without me knowing it up until we started doing the synonyms that they were using that, I would have thought that just, hey, SharePoint would have been good enough. Like, everybody types it out, but not everybody does.
Yeah, it's funny, those things that become like innate in the culture at a company that's been around for a long time.
Yeah, so just sitting down, making the time to do it. I know if anybody else is like us in managed services, we're going 100 miles an hour, 20, 30 different directions at the same time, but you're only going to get out what you put in to CrushBank. So take the time to set it up right from the get-go, and you'll have a lot more success in the long run.
And I think that's a really good point that Nick made about getting the tech teams involved, because I think it's too often in this business, we go out to events, we go to IT Nation, we go to Exchange, we go wherever, and as managers, we find these cool systems, platforms, and tools. I'm not allowed to call CrushBank a tool, but we find all these cool systems and platforms, and we go back to the office and we say, here, you do this. And we don't give them ownership and accountability and partnership, quite frankly, on the journey. So I think it's really crucial to sit down and say, like, here's how we're going to make your life easier. You know, give me examples of things where you don't find, or give me examples of shortcuts or abbreviations that you guys use. So I think sort of extending that collaboration to all of your employees all the way down to like the frontline help desk, I think becomes really important and really powerful.
And I think it really leads into the carrot versus the stick scenario. I mean, a lot of times we're looking at tons of data. We're looking at their KPIs. How many tickets did they close? What's their average time on ticket? And kind of driving more with a stick. So we kind of took CrushBank as a carrot. If you guys can help us get this set up, get some of those KPIs to come down from where we're at, faster searching, quicker responses to the clients, we're going to make it beneficial for you with a gift card or a bonus, or order lunch to the office, whatever. And then tied that in with the questionnaires, making sure that they have a voice in what's going on, and that they understand what's going on. At the end of the day, if an engineer doesn't understand why they're doing something, giving their mindsets are in engineering, they're probably not going to do it, and they're going to kind of blow you off and move on to something else that they know why they're doing it.
Yep. Nick, that's an awesome point. I think, it may sound obvious in retrospect, but we realize David noted this, we're really working with like 3 different personas or different types of people at a client. There's an executive, they got one set of goals and challenges. There's a manager who's probably overwhelmed trying to deal with a whole bunch of stuff, right? And how do we make this compelling and impactful to them? And then there's obviously the users. And you want to give the managers, like you look at some of those best practices that Dave went through, the idea is to create some political capital for the managers, so that if you find that reverse lookup, for example, the long tail 60-minute plus scenario where you can say, hey, Steve, we just found here, like, here's, if you looked at this, I could have saved you 2 hours. And in saving you 2 hours, like, now what's in it for them? Like, where's the quality of experience, the quality of customer experience that they have, not just the metrics. So we try to help each level get what's in it for them. And the final comment on that is, like, we've got some pretty gratifying comments from end users where they say, okay, now I get why it's worth me putting better notes in. And it's kind of like maybe a final comment on this piece of it. Like, everyone knows full well that without something like CrushBank in place, those notes are only good for billing queries that come up in the future. Like, you can't find something 3 months ago, 3 weeks ago, 3 years ago. So as an engineer, it's sort of hard to be like, yeah, your boss yells at you and tells you to put it in, but full well it's never going to be leveraged again unless you personally remember it from a recurring issue. And that's why these Teams threads go all over the place. But if we can have a scenario where you can't escalate without going to CrushBank, that creates that trust where I'm going to get that data. Someone's already checked on it for me, and now it's actually worth my while to put a better note in there. And we've seen this from end users, because someone won't bother me at 4 o'clock on a Saturday or at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday or whatever it might be. And vice versa. I now have a positive impact on that as well. And like, the end of this whole goal is to create not only better KPIs for your customers and your internal profitability, but a better data quality set where you don't sit there and say, oh, we don't have good enough data to do something like this. Like, you build that data, you improve that data, and you empower those level 1s and level 2s. I think, like you're saying, Nick, to be part of improving that data with some of those no good data experiences and being part of better notes and all those sort of things. So hopefully that this exposes how you can help do that and some of the things that Nick has done and frankly still wants to do in terms of even optimizing it going further. Any parting shots, Nick, that you want to sort of leave people with?
I don't think so. I think I'm good if you're good.
I do appreciate you taking some time to
Okay.
to share and obviously as Nick went through this, he's like, yeah, there's stuff that we still want to implement here. So it is a process of continuing to make it worth everyone's while.
Yeah,
Nick,
thanks so much, Nick. And just a reminder to everyone, if you have any questions for Nick or any of the other presenters, just put them in the Q&A box. Ben is going to bring us home with a little sneak peek of some new features that will be coming out soon.
Yep, thanks, Nick. All right, so these two are set to release end of the month, start of Q1. So we'll just dive in. So CrushBank Answer is the first one. So really excited about this one. This one allows you to basically designate any customer-facing KBAs within your CrushBank system, and you can configure it at a service board level. So any new ticket that comes in, client-facing new ticket that comes in, our system will run it against, it'll take the title, summary, description of that ticket and run it against your existing CrushBank system, and basically pull back any relevant KBAs that you've designated and give an auto reply email to that client. So the whole goal here is to cut down on number of tickets and also help resolve the tickets faster, right? Before the technician even has to view the ticket, hopefully the KBAs that you designate will give the client enough information to where they can auto resolve the ticket on their own. As far as selecting the documents, there'll be two options.
Oh, sorry, Ben, go on. I was
gonna say just for selecting the KBAs, you'll be able to select filters. So like if you have a SharePoint collection that you want to use, you can designate that. If you have, like for ConnectWise, if you're using KBAs, you can designate the KBA document type within ConnectWise as a ticket, and you can also individually choose selected documents for your KBAs as well.
So real quick, I just wanted to touch on this for a minute. I'm very excited about this feature and this function. We've long sort of shied away from being end user facing, meaning a system for your customers to use. And we are still primarily focused on being an internal, because we want to make your teams better, your processes better, your data better, all that fun stuff. But if we can sort of find a way to make your business more efficient and more effective at the same time, like, we're really excited about doing that. So that's what CrushBank Answer is, the first foray into that. As Ben said, ultimately, you'll be able to put any sort of document you want as a customer-facing result, and it will send it out. I will encourage you, because this is coming later towards the end of this month, beginning of January, I would encourage you to go back today and start thinking about customer-facing documentation, because that is going to be probably the biggest roadblock for some people on adopting this. You don't necessarily have documentation that's meant for your customers. We're working on some things behind the scenes that will potentially make that easier and better for you. Stay tuned. But for now, I would encourage you to start thinking about the 8 to 10 types of questions that you can put together documentation for. So really simple things like, how do I set up my email on a mobile device? How do I log into Citrix? How do I connect to the VPN? How do I check my voicemail? Like, look through your tickets for the things that are real simple answers that are repeatable, that you think, and again, it's on a per client basis, because these will be filtered based on the client that's sending the ticket in. So start thinking about that documentation and tasking someone with writing it. I'm telling you, the upfront investment in putting together a bunch of that documentation will pay off in waves, because not only, again, will it enable features like this, but I highly encourage end user facing documentation as a good way to onboard new employees as well. If the way I think of it is it's simple enough that an end user can do it, then anyone you hire can do it as well. So just like kind of think of that as the foundation for building this documentation. Thanks, Ben.
Yep. Thanks, Dave. All right. And then second, also coming at the end of the month, the O data feed. So this is particular to Insight data. A lot of our customers love everything about Insight, but they want a little bit more the ability to customize it a little more in terms of the graphs and the presentation. Right now, we show the heat map. So they've wanted different ways to do that. So we're going to be releasing an OData feed that basically you can plug into any of your third-party reporting systems, whether it's Power BI, Tableau, Looker, anything that you're using on the other end. And it's just a raw data feed that you can get the same insight data that you see here in CrushBank, and then you can put it into your own system and then customize it accordingly.
All right, thanks, Ben, and thanks to all the presenters. Just with the last few minutes, time to address some questions. Again, last chance. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box in Zoom. Just a couple of things I see. Ben, can you just confirm around the Outlook plugin when that's available? And then maybe it's also worth mentioning the different versions of Outlook that it supports as well.
Right. Yeah. So it will be released on 12.14, and it does do the client. It does the desktop version as well as the web version. So it will accommodate both.
It's actually really slick the way it works in either version of it. It will be available in the Microsoft Office store or whatever the heck they call that these days. So you'll just be able to download that, and you'll just have to log into CrushBank, and it'll work pretty seamlessly for you. So we're excited about that.
And then David, maybe could you talk a little bit more about the historical type and subtype classification? If people have got an environment where they've got some data filled out, some data not filled out, what's the sort of strategy there?
Sure. So just from a pure functional standpoint, the way it works essentially is you set up the classification for type and subtype, again, either using our recommendations or putting your own mapping together. And once you save that and turn it on, it starts classifying every new ticket that comes in, when they're created and when they're closed again. So I don't know if we were that specific about that, but basically we look at it twice, because on the way in, we're looking at the summary and the description. When it's closed, we're also looking at all the time entries, because I think that oftentimes does a better job of actually classifying what the ticket is. Historically, you can essentially go in there, you can pick a time frame, you can pick a service board, click go, and it will go back and start retroactively applying the same type, subtype, and item of that model. So there's a couple of use cases where that's very interesting. From just like a pure business management standpoint, if you want to be able to look up historically and see how you performed in the past based on the same types and subtypes and items, I think it's good to have that in there rather than having to remember, oh, we changed that on January 1st of 2023. So it looked different before. I think just kind of keeping that common language, even historically, is really useful. Again, maybe you bring someone new in and they need to look at old tickets, and it becomes confusing if you have different types and subtypes and that stuff. So I just think it's a best practice. The other place that's interesting, and we're seeing a lot of this, is in the M&A world. A lot of times if you acquire a company, again, running ConnectWise, you may want to go back and historically reclassify all their tickets to match yours. Same reasons: reporting, accountability, just sort of expectations and understanding what's been done previously. But I think it's really interesting in the M&A world when you acquire a new company and you can almost immediately kind of put this baseline in place that's the same as yours, and start to understand what they spent time on, how much time they did in comparison to your role. Because maybe there's some hidden gem in there. There's some superstar that does a great job with a certain type of tickets that you don't have that expertise. So you can start to reveal that stuff. So I just think it's interesting to do it from not only a functional standpoint, but just from sort of an admin and management standpoint.
And then you mentioned the mapping. People have obviously got to have some kind of schema. So what do you see out there, and any help with people to decide how to classify?
So we're doing some work to try and put some standards in place. I'm not going to be arrogant enough to say that we're going to set the standard for what everyone should do, but we're working with some of the larger consulting and software companies to put together an outline and a sort of a foundation of what we think tickets for an MSP, how they should be classified. If you agree with what we are doing and putting together and what we already have in the system now, it's as easy as clicking a button, and we then retroactively assign. We basically create those types, subtypes, and items. We do the mapping in our system to say when something is classified as this is the type, subtype, and item, and you're all set and you're good to go. If you don't want to use that for some reason, meaning you're really married to whatever types and subtypes you have now, or you have some line of business specialty or some vertical industry specialization where you cannot change your types, subtypes, and items, you want to stick with what you have, we essentially give you the ability to create a map on the back end that says, we classified a ticket as this, and we have about 400 concepts. We classified a ticket as this, this, and this. What do you want that to be as a type, subtype, and item? So in other words, maybe we classify it as a DNS issue and you have a type of networking, subtype of routing, I don't know, I'm just making this up, an item of issue. You would sort of create that mapping so that when that gets categorized that way, we would apply it to your ticket. So again, we're not locking you into how we want to do things. We think it's logical. We think it makes sense. We think it's a really good starting point, but we also have the flexibility to say, hey, however this is classified, you can categorize that whatever you want. Your types, subtypes, and items can be, whatever you could think of, and we can match it.
Okay, perfect. I think we've answered the open questions. Maybe Brian, do you want to make some closing comments here?
Not really. I think it was Nick Oxier. I really appreciate you spending time. I think the willingness to do that speaks to the opportunity that everyone has here to take further advantage of CrushBank. I guess I lied. My parting comment would be, these best practices, if leveraged and if you engage with us, we are ready and willing to help you implement a couple of these things that might be more than just, hey, don't escalate without using CrushBank. Some of those things that are really simple. So please work with our team to make sure that we're doing everything to help you adopt these functional pieces to make that ROI click. And then look hard into 2023 with CrushBank as a piece of making better data quality for you, or building better data quality, and then enabling workflows that make a more efficient business as well. So those are the three things we want to be able to lean on for every client of ours: is efficiency in search, data quality, and workflow enablement. And hopefully we've given you some good ideas, and obviously like where we're doing with CrushBank Answer and some of those things coming forward as well. You'll see more partnerships going forward on the software side. But you should be looking at CrushBank saying, is it doing all three of these for me? And if not, you should be reaching out to us or working with us to make sure that we help you get that.
And yeah, Brian, if I could just sort of add on to that. I mean, most of you probably know the story, but like a lot of MSP-centric software, the founders of this company all came from the MSP space. We all know the strains and challenges and difficulties we'll go through. And what we do is really difficult, right? It's becoming even more so. It's just not a sustainable model in a lot of ways, between the skyrocketing cost of labor and just the difficulty in finding people, the diversity of what we need to support and how we need to support it, people working remotely, just not only internally, but at our clients. It's becoming what we do is becoming very, very difficult, more so than it ever has. So we're looking to make a platform that helps you make that job easier. And hopefully we've gotten part of the way there, but we really want to partner with you is what I'm trying to say here. So please, I encourage any feedback, any thoughts, any ideas. I kind of shied away from putting it on this presentation, but we're deploying some new features around kind of voice of the customer that will let you give us a little bit better feedback, let you make suggestions around roadmap, maybe even vote on features and things like that. So we really want to partner with you. Like I say, I know a lot of vendors say that stuff, but I really mean it, darn it. No, seriously, I think it's important for your success and for ours to work hand in hand. As you saw with Nick, we consider our partners, our clients and partners super critical to the success of the product and to the company. And again, I just encourage any feedback we can get, anything we can do better or anything we can help you do better. Please let us know. We have some really exciting things on the roadmap for 2023. I think Brian will probably try to do these client webinars at least twice a year, if not every quarter. I don't want to overcommit to anything, but we'll see how that goes. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, and thank you to everyone for, again, being a partner and for jumping on this.
Yeah, thanks, David. Thanks so much to all the panelists. Thanks to everyone for attending, of course. We will be sending you a copy of the slides, the recording, in case you want to share it with any colleagues, and also a document summarizing David's best practices that you can use as a reference and share internally as well. So thanks so much. That concludes today's webinar, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.